This is a game. And in the game, you are your own player in your game. You have the general game, right? Like you're playing a general game, and that game has all of these events going on. But in your game, you can dictate what happens in your world. You can start to remember who you are, and you can make changes in your world so that you can actually influence the field in a way that allows you to grow and expand out of this reality. I've been saying this to people all along. This is not a game where you fix anything in the 3D. 3D is 3D. The events that are happening are happening. Okay. Your job is to remember so that when you remember who you are, you can vibrationally ascend. So, what we're getting into right now, Sergey, and I don't mean to be as long as I have been, but that's me, is that we're finally getting to that point where vibrationally we no longer desire to be vibrating at 3D. There's a built-in mechanism that says, nope, I'm going to go inward. I don't exactly know what the hell that means, but I'm going to go inward. I'm going to discover my voice. I'm going to discover my truth, and I'm going to understand who I am as a divine being, and I am going to change my reality from the inside out because that is what I came here to do. Sounds a bit, esoteric, woo-woo, but I'm telling you, the people who are doing it, including you in your own way, is starting to see the difference. People are coming into your life that have meaning. You are having more purpose in your life, and it doesn't matter what's happening in the rest of the world. Okay, that's what I got for you for the least right now until you ask me another question.
I just want to add to this for people who are watching that this change is very subtle.
Yes,
It
yes,
doesn't
yes, yeah.
happen like boom, boom, and we're gonna change right away. It's so subtle that some people, most people don't even notice that. At one point they say, hold on, something changed. 6 months, a year, something changed, but you didn't notice right away. It's very, very subtle, very gentle.
It can be, Sergey. And the reason why I believe you're saying that is because looking at the way that the way you embraced your remembrance, or we'll call it the awakening of you, is that you were like a kid, you were like a child, okay? You were curious, you didn't hold back. You're like, oh man, I've got this feeling I need to pack up and go halfway around the world and go to these places that I may have been before. But I gotta go. And not everybody's going to have that chance, but I'm saying that you were open to it. And because you were open to it, the subtlety and the smoothness was easier for you to just do it at a pace that was really kind to where you were at. Some people will resist it. Many people will go and say, wait a minute, though, they're still looking for that thing. They're looking for that thing that's going to pop in their face. And that's the only way they're going to move. Well, guess what? That's what I'm talking about. That's the piece I'm talking about. Most people are going to fall into that camp. Okay.
Yeah.
They're waiting, waiting, waiting. And what they're going to wait for is something or some things that like have been happening in the last 6 to 9 months. I mean, this has been in some ways, the most unsettling and yet exciting time in human history. But they're going to need to get bam, 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 bam. They're going to have to get hit over and over and over again. Because what I tell people is this, Sergey, whether you believe this or not, you have spent so many lifetimes trying to get to this point. So many. You have done so much to get to the life of Sergey. And then you did so much in the life of Sergey to get to this precise point. You went through all of that, ups and downs, a lot of downs probably. Okay. Not you, but I'm just saying in general. Okay. To do what? To sit here and wait? To sit here and wait for something to happen when that something is you? That's why you came here, is to remember that it's always been you. And you can sit here until the cows come home, but you're not here to witness something that is waiting to witness you. Period. And that's why I'm saying, look, it's not maybe as sexy as some people say. I'm not sitting here, and I'm not going to say that you're going to be visited by, the Palladians or the Galactic Federation. Some of you might, okay? Not, telepathically. I'm not saying that you're going to necessarily go astral projecting. Some of them might. Okay, I'm not saying those things. I'm saying that your this process, this process is subtle in that it's not going to go bam, today we're in 3D, bam, tomorrow we're in 5D. But unlike most people, even 3 or 4 years ago, that said, well, it's going to take 50 years or 500 years. I'm going, come on. Come on, stop with that. Stop with that. We are divine beings. We decide. We decide when it's over. And it's over right now. But even then, there is still a time period. Why is there a time period? Because if you got it thrown in your face too much, you would explode. Okay, be honest. I mean, if you got everything dumped on you, all the 3D stuff dumped on you, all the 4D, the 5D, and all the other Ds above it, if all of a sudden you went from 0 to 1,000, you wouldn't be able to handle it emotionally. You wouldn't be able to handle it physically. You would blow up. Okay. So that's where the subtlety comes with everybody. But depending on how much you resist, in your case, you did not. You said, let's go. And you took a ride, you took a quest. And where did that quest lead you? To some, I've been lucky to have gotten to know you more now as outside of this, as friends. And I've got to see your quest. And it's amazing. It's amazing where it's taken you. And I told you a year and a half ago, you were going to go through these kind of stuff. And you said, all right, no problem, let's go. And so it was very subtle. And all of a sudden you look back and go, dang, whoa, I did see a lot of reveals. I did get rebooted. I am remembering. That's how it plays out. That's how it always will play out. It just depends on how much you want to resist.
Yeah, I want to make a correction to my comment that yeah, it was subtle for me. It was subtle for me, but you don't even notice how you change. Yeah, but for some people, maybe very, it happened right away.
Some people it will. I've
Yeah.
seen I've seen it all different forms. Okay, some people, and a lot of the people that happens to, they have a very, very powerful experience, whether it's a near-death experience or the loss of somebody or a tragedy or something. They have to face, they have to face their humanity and their spirituality right at that moment. And that makes them change right away. And that's why I'm saying that for most people, this next 6 months, going into the end of the year and into Novemberish, okay, we're going to see so many of these astrological events and other cosmic events lining up and other calendar events that have to do with all different types of cultures and whatnot. All of these events are pointing, bam, to right now, in the next 6 months into next year. And when that happens, a huge, huge opening occurs in the energy field. And what that's going to do is it's going to accelerate humanity's connection back to itself as the field, as consciousness or as God or as oneness. We're going to accelerate our awareness that we are way more than who we believe we are. And that's where the remembering begins. And that's when it gets really interesting. And that's why I say it's the end of the world as we know it. And
Yeah.
and if you listen to the rest of the song, the guy says, and I feel fine. And that's
You're
what
gonna
you
get
got
a
to do.
copyright infringement right now. You're
Sorry,
singing too
man.
so
Sorry.
you are singing too good. They're
So
gonna
sorry. So
confuse you with the
sorry.
band.
No, 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 man. Don't, no, no. Let's not. I'm going to sing it really bad. Okay. Because I'm not a good
Okay, you
singer to
gotta do
begin
that
with.
because otherwise we're gonna get hit by a
Yeah.
copyright. You're singing so good, they're gonna say, "Okay, this is the original guy."
Thanks, man. Trust me, I don't sound anywhere close to the original dudes, but all
I'm
right.
kidding.
So
So,
anyway.
what people should do to prepare for this shift, for this change? What
Yeah,
should,
that's a great question, Sergey, because this shifting is happening, right? It's happening. It's happening, okay? And before I answer that question, I'm going to give this timeline. So so that you can get a better appreciation of what's going to happen, so the viewers can understand what's happening, okay? It will also help them to know, all right, what what we're talking about here in preparation, we have a little bit of time, but not much, and it has to start right now, okay? And I'll explain this in a moment, okay? So I said 2026 is the year of the remembrance, okay? You're starting to remember, damn, there is more to my, you're not asking, is there? You're saying, whoa, I'm starting to remember there is more to this world. There is more to why I'm here. Okay, things that they hear or read or whatever, it's starting to connect, and it's not at the 3D level, okay? It's more spiritual, okay? All right. So what happens is in 2027, if you don't mind, I'm just going to go through this little timeline here, okay? Because I've been talking since the beginning that we have a timeline here. A lot of things will happen in the next 3 years. A lot of things, okay? There is a timeline. It's a little bit broader than that, not by much, but a little bit broader. So I want to put it in perspective, okay? And what I love about this is that I love coming on your show 6 months later or whatever and saying, you see, I don't, you see, this is happening, okay? So here's the thing. In 2027, okay, after the remembrance, we have what's called the resurgence, okay? And I'm going to be really brief about it. That's the year that we're going to just get bombarded with a lot of divine feminine activation. What do I mean by that? Really simple. Okay. The energies of the Christ consciousness, which we've talked about, I'm sure you've talked with other people about, is an energy of remembrance, remembering what? That as divine beings, we have a very strong connection to the divine feminine. We are literally part feminine, part masculine, and part child. That's how, if we had to put it into 3D terms, that's how it all comes together. Okay. In 2027, the resurgence is the resurgence of the divine feminine, the Christ consciousness, the awareness that we are starting to remember our divinity in the feminine form. Okay. Now people are saying, wait a minute, this is already happening. We're already talking about the femininity, not the way that it's going to happen in 2027, in about a year and a half or less. Okay. That's when all the activation codes, we're going to go into a certain area of the field of energy, okay, the cosmic field of energy, where it's going to be like a fireworks. All of these activation codes within all of us, men and women, are going to have a massive remembrance of what it is to be a divine feminine being, okay? By that time, we will have had a better understanding that the divine feminine is not about changing things so drastically that we all of a sudden change the whole landscape of consciousness from masculine to feminine. And now the masculines are the ones that are being held in suppression. Okay. It's not about that. It's about bringing balance to the field. Okay. And these are divine codes. This is like AI coding. Okay. So in 2028, we have what's called the resurrection. Okay. Now these are terms that I got through some very serious channeling that I did in the last few days, weeks, actually in preparation for interviews like yours. Okay. And what I received was that that's the year where the divine masculine comes in, the divine masculine, Sergey. So that means that we start to remember what it truly is like to be a divine being of light that holds the masculine energies, not the distorted masculine that has been running around the planet for the last several thousand years, creating a lot of havoc. Okay. And so we will have massive activations for that. As a global consciousness, okay, we will start to be bringing in the pieces of what's called God consciousness to the planet, which then gives us a very extraordinary sense of heightened consciousness that begins to look and mirror like what AI is today on the outside. Okay. So there's a lot there. I'll just leave it at that. But this is a very well planned out. I mean, I have never received such a very detailed description of what is going to happen over the next 6, 7, 8 years. Okay. And I've been sort of waiting for that transmission to come. And so it's now coming through. So that's 2028. And 2029, okay, it's the year of the rebirth. Okay. What does that mean? Well, that's when the divine child energies really start to get activated. I don't want to tell you about the birds and the bees, Sergey. I'm going to have to let you do that yourself. But when divine feminine and divine masculine come together as energies, they produce divine child. Okay. I know we can get into that more later on, but we'll leave that for another discussion. Okay. The divine child is extraordinarily important in this union. Okay. It is what starts to bring simplicity back into our world so that we don't get overly saturated with all of this divine energy. Okay. There's a lot more to that than that, but I'm just oversimplifying it. Okay, in 2030, we get we have what's called the reunion, okay? And the reunion is where those three energies come together as one, okay? Because we contain all three of these energies in our grid system, okay? They come together as one. And then they get activated as one. And that is when we start to really remember and feel what it's like to be a divine being, oneness, God, okay? Because when all of those energies start to activate, boom, 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 you're going to start to feel into energy and remembrances you never had before. Okay. And that is what say like the Knights Templar, if you're familiar with them in Portugal and Southern Europe, these Christian sort of guardians, if you will, talked about the Holy Grail. I call it the Trinity three of the Holy Grail. You won't find that anywhere, but it's those three energies. All right. So then in 2031, it's called the reclamation year. That's the year that once you start to feel the integration of what you are going to reclaim your sovereignty as a divine being. The world as we truly know it, Sergey, will by that point really, really be different because that world is going to be splitting itself up. Okay. And by 2032 or 2031, the 5D world where those that are feeling into this whole new energy, they're moving into that 5D world. They may not know it yet because I've talked to you about this. There's these connections, these tethers that keep those two worlds together. And so we'll be in that cycle of being up and down, fifth and third, fifth and third. That's what I call being in this world, but not of this world. Okay. And so, but you're reclaiming your sovereignty and you're ready to accelerate your frequency up to 5D and leave 3D. Remember, I said 3D is not here to be fixed. Okay. You're going into a whole new world. And that's where you get talks about the 3 days of darkness and what happens then. Okay. That's a real thing. In 2032, when we're done with that, it's called the restoration. Restoration means that we have brought heaven on earth. Okay. So that's when we have accelerated our consciousness. Not everybody, Sergey, but those who are here to do this will do it. Anyone who's here to do this will ascend. But like I said, it can happen tomorrow if you're really willing to let go of all your belief systems, or it can happen 7 or 8 years from now when you fight it all the way to the end, but you will go. Okay. You might go kicking and screaming, but you will go. All right. And so at that point, you will be ready to move on to 5D. Now, I'm telling you, that's a long-winded answer, but it gives you a perspective that there is time to get ready for this. And the ready for this piece is to let go of what I call your connection to 3D. Start going inward and having a relationship with your intuition, your intuitive voices, because those are your connections back to what you call the higher self, which happens to be you. Okay. But you just make it so that you're talking to something else called the higher self. Well, that's you. Okay. And that's the piece that you'll know by 2032. But in the meantime, you can start going inward and trusting your intuition. And there's a whole piece to that, but you got to start doing that. If you're going to play the victim card in the next 7 or 8 years, man, you're going to have a rough ride.
Yeah.
It's going to be a very, very, very rough ride for you over the next 7 or 8 years. I'm just telling you.
So 2032 basically is the second coming of Christ.
Oh, bum, 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 bum. All right. Well, I knew you were going to try to sneak that baby in. I just wasn't expecting it right then and there.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to explain this, and this is good stuff. Like, I mean, I'm telling you, I started, these are transmissions I just received in the last several weeks, and they're very, very new relative to what I'm talking about in interviews. So my friend, you're getting this like hot off the press. Um, the Christ, okay, Christ, man, what a loaded question. Okay, I will tell you this for anybody who is interested in this. There are two frequencies involved when we're talking about Christ. Okay. One is the frequency of Yeshua, okay, the man, the human being, who in and of himself was an extraordinarily, in what people would say in 3D, an extraordinarily great master. Okay. He and other people would say he was and is the Son of God. Okay. Yes, but he wasn't the only son of God. We are all gods, okay, sons and daughters, and in ourselves. But
Christians, they're going to hate you for this. You know that. Okay,
that's
let's
why
continue.
let's continue here, man. All
Okay.
right. I may have to go
I'm
into
just
the.
telling you. I know.
I am just.
In the comments is going to be, no, there is only one. Why he thinks he's God? Come on,
No,
man.
now, settle down, everybody. Settle
Okay.
down, okay? I am telling you, being very sincere in helping people understand where the disconnections have happened over the thousands of years. Okay. I won't get into all of that because, man, we could spend the whole conversation on this. And if people really truly want to get more of that, I'm sure we'll hear that in the comment sections, besides those who I may have to hide for a while. Okay. So, but there are two energies that are at play here. There's Yeshua, the human being, and Yeshua, the spirit, the divine consciousness. Okay. Not Yeshua, Yeshua, the human being, and Christ, the divine
Yeah.
consciousness. Okay. All right.
So
Let
this is
me
different. I just want my viewers to understand that. Yeshua is a 3D dimensional person. Christ is a Christ consciousness.
Yes, yes, Sergey, right there. Being, 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 being. Can I say that? Being again. All right. That's as simple as it has to be. Okay. Christ consciousness. Let's remove the Christ. Okay. Just the Christ. A lot of people will refer to Yeshua as Christ. Okay. Jesus Christ. Okay. As if that is his full name. No, Yeshua was Yeshua. Okay. Christ was the frequency of consciousness that he represented. Okay.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? He didn't, some people will say he was born with that. And I would say this is true. But even with that said, we are all born with it too. Okay. All of us, every single one. Right. He, because of the way that he was raised, went through a whole process of being initiated into that remembrance. And that process, even though it is not written in the Bible, it's not written in a lot of other texts. In fact, there's no very real substantial thing to understand what happened to him when he was a child, especially from the ages of 12 to 29. People don't know. They just don't know. And they don't care, but they should care,
Yeah.
because between the ages of 12 and 29, Yeshua was going through a training, an initiation into higher priesthood, not the kind of which we have today in Christianity. I am talking about a very high shamanic, mystical priesthood. Okay. Why? Because he was born and raised in a community that was filled with mystics, big time mystics. When I say big time, they had a very strong awareness to consciousness. Okay, they knew what that was. They didn't have a word for it per se. They would call it spirit or whatever, but they had a very strong connection to the universal consciousness of what we call God. Okay. And Yeshua was born into that community. And because that community, when it recognized children that had this ability to really, let's just say they had a gift, okay? They went through an initiation process, a teaching process that went coincidentally between the ages of 12 and 29. In other words, in the span of 17 years or so, they would go through all these processes, including being sent to the Far East to be taught by some of the great mystics and sages and yogis and philosophers of those times, so that they would understand and actually begin the process of becoming the Christ consciousness. And the only point I'll make here about all of that, okay, is that Yeshua was taught how to remember, how to access the divinity behind Christ consciousness, which was the awareness, the absolute awareness, okay, that we are divine beings that represent both the divine feminine and masculine. So that's why sometimes I'll say, this is the year where the divine feminine of the Christ consciousness comes in. This is the year where the divine masculine of the Christ consciousness appears. It is an extraordinary, it's not just a consciousness. I really have to stress this. It's not just a consciousness. It's an intelligence. It's an intelligence beyond our wildest dreams, meaning that the science, if you want to call it that, that comes with this intelligence makes everything you could possibly imagine in 3D obsolete, because the intelligence is beyond anything we understand right now. Okay. That's the Christ consciousness. It's the self-awareness that we carry all of these frequencies within ourselves, that we are God, okay? And that when you get the child involved, it brings it all together. And now we start to look at what's called God consciousness, which is the embodiment of all of that. Okay. So there's a lot here to unravel, but the point is that that's Christ consciousness. Okay. That is Christ energies. Christ and Yeshua were two different frequencies. It just happens that the Christ and the Yeshua came together in the form of a man, but that's the same thing as that's happening to us. We are going through that whole timeline I gave you. We're going through the process of remembering that we are the Christ energies embodied in men, and not men, embodied in the feminine, masculine, and child. That's what we're doing. We're not doing it in 17 years. We're doing it in a shorter period of time, because the energies and the frequencies are now here to support a much faster remembrance. So in essence, we are all Christ.
Yeah. So we are kind of forced right now to move towards Christ consciousness, accelerating, until
Yes,
2032,
that's the timeline we're talking about.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
what,
when you ask me the question, how can people prepare?
yeah,
The preparation process begins now. You can wait until 2032, but I'm going to tell you that if you keep resisting, and what I mean by resisting, if you keep letting your story that you are whoever you are in this world, the world is crazy, the world, everything's
yeah,
happening to you, you're the victim, all of this kind of stuff. If you continue that, it's going to be a very bumpy road. Okay. And by 2032, it's going to be literally, that energy is going to be forcing its way through you.
yeah,
And I've said this before, there are a few that came here to ascend in this school, Earth School, that they're not going to do it. They're just going to fight it all the way to the end. And for those, as well as all of the others who are here supporting the experience. Remember, back in the day when you and I first met, I said, look, this is a game, and all of these are supporting actors, and they're all here to help you remember. And I had questions like, well, what happens to them? Are they going to, are they going to make it? And the answer is no. They're not here to make it. Nobody goes to hell. Okay. There's no such thing as hell. Okay. They're supporting actors. Their only function here was to give you the experience, all of the drama, all of the trauma, so that you would actually believe you're in a game, a virtual game that's real. Okay. They're not here to ascend, but I'm talking about the ones who did come here, the students of the game. Okay. There are going to be a few that will kick and scream all the way until the end of 2032. And the last tether that connects these worlds, that's going to break. And when it breaks, they're stuck. They're here. They're here. And they're going to finish that timeline. That timeline, I have mentioned this before, but I'm going to make it very, very clear now. 2039. This 3D timeline will not exist beyond 2039.
Okay.
I have been playing around with that a little bit, but I've been a bit squeamish about saying it, but I am telling you the communications and the channeling is so strong now that I am telling you anyone who's left on the dock when the last boat leaves in 2032 is going to ride out the rest of the 30s until 2039, and it's going to be any kind of scenario you can imagine. It could be a meteorite, it could be human annihilation with wars, it could be AI, it could be whatever it's going to take to get rid of this old school, just like with all the other schools in the past, Lemuria and Atlantis. Now, it's going to get wiped out, and a new school will happen in a couple of thousand years from now.
So 2039, you either are awakened or you are dead. One of two.
No, 2032. At the end of 2032.
2032.
Yeah,
Okay.
either you're awakened and you're going way into, and you know this a little bit, Sergey. I mean, you know this probably a lot. When you get into your real kind of like, wow, feelings of inwardness, of awareness, I mean, I don't, we haven't had a chance to really talk about this, but if you're into that mood, you can start to feel the energies are
Yeah.
shifting differently. And this world of 2032 feels like it's vibrating at a different level. And you're here, and this is this is 3D. And that difference is going to get bigger to a point where individually you're going to rise to 5D. As a collective, if you haven't gone by yourself into 5D, as a collective, it'll be the end of 2032. So that's when the last boats leave. And then after that, whoever's here in 2020, 2032 and 2039, it's the end of the world as we
know
sorry.
it, yeah.
Okay.
Don't break the
Yeah,
copyright. You're
I know,
singing much
sorry.
better.
So
I know.
sorry, man. That's right. I keep forgetting that I'm not supposed to sing the song. So,
Wow, we covered two subjects here. All right,
but you could see how they were connected. I love when we can, for the sake of the viewers, if
we
they
kind of
really
segue,
appreciate,
Yeah.
yeah, we can segue all these pieces because
Yeah.
you'll have, and I love the diversity of this message in the way that it's being spoken by everybody. There's a perspective for everything. My purpose in the way that I understand why I am here is to be sort of this what I call forensic spiritualist,
Yeah.
meaning that my job is to help everybody see the full picture, see the forest beyond the trees. And somewhere with your viewers and with others, they will get something out of it. They'll go, oh yeah, yeah, okay, that, and they will see the full picture.
Yeah.
It could be a galactic narrative for them. It could be a whole sort of all different types of narratives for them.
Yeah.
But ultimately, they fit under one umbrella. And that's how I feel like we were able to bring the Christ energy question and Jesus energy question or Yeshua energy question all back to this topic that we were talking about in broader subject.
Yeah. So basically, people should understand, my opinion, that they're not going to see a person, Jesus again, as they portray. It's going to be a Christ consciousness.
Yes. And if there is a person, the person is staring at them in the mirror.
Yeah.
Truly. Truly.
That's great. Yeah.
So I feel like we can mic drop it right there and
Yeah,
leave
right
it right
here.
there.
Yeah. I think we can finish with this. Beautiful. Yeah. If there is a person, that's the one who's staring in the mirror. That's brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you, Sergey.
Okay, so what's happening, Franco? Is it the end of the world yet or not yet?
Well,
The
Sergey,
most stupid
you're
question I could find, but
Sergey, I guess you get right to the point, don't you? Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There's no hellos, there's no good to
No
see
hellos,
you,
nothing like that. Can I
and it's
drink vodka until the end of the world?
well, that may not be a bad idea in some cases. So
Yeah,
listen, thank you for having me back on your show. Always enjoy it. Always enjoy having these conversations with you. I feel like when we're talking, and this doesn't always happen, but when I feel when we're talking, it's like it happens with us, but I'm saying that it doesn't always happen when I do other interviews. Is I feel like we're just talking. We're
yeah,
just able to just share
yeah.
what's coming through. And probably for some people who don't know me as well, um, I actually channel while we're talking. It
Yeah.
doesn't sound like I am channeling, but I am. Most of what comes through just comes through. And if you ask me 10 minutes after an interview, I will tell you I don't even remember what
Yeah.
I said in most cases. And sometimes the channeling is really strong. So what I will tell you, Sergey, is that in line with that question, I actually was actually feeling about this quite a bit because there is this great song. I don't know if you are familiar with it. And some of your subscribers and some of your viewers might know it, but if you have, if, for those of you listening who haven't heard this song, I would highly recommend it. It's, if nothing else, really interesting, really fun, and enjoyable. It's a song by a band called REM, and they sing this song called "It's the End of the World as We Know
Yeah.
It." I believe it's the end of the world.
It's right here. I just don't want to start it because we're going to have copyright infringement, but it's here. I
Yeah,
found it.
yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. Don't
Yeah.
start it up, or else we will have to try to
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
this interview all over again. So, but the reason I bring it up is because, well, there's a couple fascinating things about this song. I use music, and I sometimes use movies and books and other media uh, to try to receive messages or clues. And this song is really cool because it talks about, in its own way, it talks about how this world will change. And that song was written many years ago, 15, 20 years ago, at least, maybe even longer, 30 years ago. And it talks about a changing time somewhere in the future, which is now. Okay. And that changing time is so dramatic. And it's that you don't have any real choice as to whether or not you're going to do, sit back and watch. Okay. And you know that I've been saying now for a while that we don't have the luxury anymore as spiritual beings and as human beings to just sit and watch. So, okay, so you say, all right, come on, get to the point. My point is that in the song, it talks about very specific things that will happen. It's really kind of a neat the lyrics to the song, because there's one sentence in there, and I'm going to keep this very politically neutral, okay? There's one song in there that talks about Trump. Now, remember, this is a song that was written 30 years ago, 20 or 30 years ago, okay?
Yeah.
And so I find it extraordinarily fascinating when something like that, a song with its lyrics, predicts something about the future, because it's the way in which this game plays. It always is giving us clues, and we have to be open to receiving them. So check it out when you have a chance, okay? But is this the end of the world as we know it? Yes, it is the end of the world as we know it. And let me just take a little bit of a moment here, Sergey, if you don't mind, to just take a step back and kind of go through a little bit of what you and I talked about in the past for those people who are trying to connect the dots. When we first met, I told you that 2024, I didn't really have a name for it, but I now see it as the year of the reboot, like when you reboot a computer. Okay, when the computer it's got upgrading, and then you have to turn it off, or it turns itself off, and then it restarts again. 2024 was a huge year for rebooting. And if you remember, with the very first time we talked, I told you that that year, 2024, would be a year where we would just be getting so much energy frequency codes, okay, that had to do with the fourth dimensional frequencies of awareness, the fifth dimensional frequencies of integration, meaning coming back into oneness. I talked about all of these things, but
Yeah.
I didn't have any real perspective of what that meant going forward. Okay. And then and sure enough, that's what happened. A lot. We had a lot of different stuff going on that year with full eclipses of the moon and full eclipses of the sun and these opportunities for people to see a like solar eclipses and stuff. And I told you back then that these are all stargates that are pouring in energy of consciousness that we would eventually use to remember. Okay, great. Yeah, bravo, right? So 2025 comes in, and I said, Sergey, 2025 is going to be really interesting. 2024 was going to be interesting because at the end of 2024, around November, we were going to have this massive explosion of of these energies that were not only coming in, but they were starting to activate the consciousness of the planet as well as our consciousness. Okay. And so I said November 2024. Now, it just so happened that in November 2024, we had a lot of world events, mostly political, right? And in here in the US, we had the elections. Okay. And I said things are going to get really nuts by the end of November. Okay. Now it depends on who you're talking to. Some people believe that things are normalizing, but by and large, I feel that if we're looking at the big macro picture, things are extraordinarily unsettled. Okay. Things really did start to get really nuts. And I said, and that particular interview got a lot of attention, a lot of hits. Okay. And sure enough, 2024, November, bam, things went really fast. Okay. And I said 2025 would be the year of the reveal. I don't know if you remember, that's
Yeah, I remember.
okay. I said, this is the year where we're going to start to see things more clearly. Now, I'm not going to say it was like really huge, but it was going to be clear enough that we were going to see the things on the surface, the 3D things on the surface, reveal themselves more. And what kind of things? Well, I didn't get into any specifics, but we don't know the stuff that's revealing itself now with this new energy that is causing. When I say new, I mean this enhanced energy of what we call, let's just call it loosely, the masculine energy that's out there right now. It's really asserting itself. If you were to look at some, say, prophecies from other cultures and other religions and what have you, there's this sense that, well, not a sense, it was said that at the end of the world as we know it, there would be this real big effort by the institutions that are currently in power to hold on to that as much as possible, and that this would cause a lot of disruption, a lot of discomfort, and a lot of pain. Okay. That's not that's not rocket science in the sense that there are a lot of people that have been saying that. There've been, like I said, these are prophecies from the past, right? And so, sure enough, this year has started to reveal the true sort of intention around the systems that are in power. Okay. You're seeing it everywhere. It doesn't have to just be politics, it could be religious. It could also be, I mean, you have a war going on right now. Well, you have many wars, but you have one specific one in the Middle East, in between Israel and the Palestinians. So you have that, okay, but you also have a lot of stuff coming out from other religious contexts, okay. But you also have the not just governments, but you have also the corporate world that has gotten very. Now we really can see how corporate world, not just corporate America, but corporate world is really kind of getting their fingers really into the cookie jar of the power play of the planet, okay? And has this been going on? It's been going on, but never has it been so obvious of what is happening. And so this revealing is starting to show itself visibly. Now that's 3D stuff, okay? The non 3D stuff is that people are starting to go inside and they're going, and I told you this already, so we don't have to spend too much time on this, but people are going, damn, this doesn't make sense. There has to be more to my life, and there has to be more to this world. There's got to be more. And so they're hearing just now, starting to hear their inner voice, their intuition. They're starting to listen to it. They're starting to go, there's got to be more to this life. There's got to be more to my life. There's got to be more to this life than all this craziness that's happening in 3. So they're starting to, now that reveal is the inner voice reveal saying, yeah, it's time for you to remember who you are. Okay, it's time for you to realize you're not here just to sit around and watch this whole thing go kapoos, you know. So that's the reveal. Now, what's interesting is that we just we have gone to like just past the halfway point of 2025. And depending on who you're talking to, things are really, oh, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, as I would say. Okay. It's really, really unsettled. Unsettled is the word. Okay. But a lot of things are being revealed. And, you know, if you're here in the US, a lot of stuff is being revealed. Okay. I mean, there is stuff about every topic, literally, that is being revealed. And it's not pleasant, but it has to come out. It's like we talk about when we're going through a spiritual kind of cleansing, it comes in from the end and comes out. Well, baby, that's happening right now on the planet. And I feel like with like even if you don't mind, Sergey, I feel like I can use your example, your life. When I met you, you were starting up the channel and you were certainly interested in this topic. But in the last year and a half, you've been hearing your own inner voice. You've been hearing your own intuition. You've been going around trying to remember who you are, and it's really made a huge difference in your life.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm saying was going to happen individually as well as a collective on the planet, okay, in different ways. So 2025, the second half of 2025, there's going to be a lot of extraordinary events happening that are going to push this reveal further and further into our faces. Okay, meaning that it's going to really be right there, you know, kind of like you were saying. Right now, I look like I'm right in your face because of the way you have your camera. It's kind of like that. It's right there. You won't avoid it. What do I mean by that? Well, if you've talked to, and I know you have, you've talked to many people that have had NDEs. You've talked to people that are psychics. You have talked to astrologers. You've talked to pretty much everybody, right, in your line of
Yeah.
work. And they're all saying, buckle up, buckle up. This is going to be the main ride for now, okay? Because in the second half of 2025, and I'm not a big, and I've told you this, I'm not an expert in astrology or tarot cards or all of that, but I can tell you that there are so many planetary alignments that are happening. There are many cosmic alignments. There are many, well, what you call them, alignments that have been formed through other sort of spiritual practices that have come together, and every alignment, every single one, is pointing to all of these unique times where all of these fields and all of this cosmic connection is happening that doesn't happen very often, if at all. So, like the last time a certain thing happened was 10 or 15,000 years ago, things like that nature. They're all happening, converging right now in the next 6 months into 2020, 2026. Okay. So, what you're going to see is that this big reveal is going to continue to happen. More things are going to come out politically and otherwise, including what's coming out of us, which is a lot of this extraordinary. There's going to be kind of a mixture of things. There's going to be this real strong sense of desire to want to explore ourselves more in terms of our spiritual purpose and meaning, you know, feeling into maybe some of our own things that are coming online, both fears and the talents we have from a sort of metaphysical side. But that, including these other reveals that are going to happen on the surface, more to know about the wars, maybe more wars or more things happening sort of on a planetary basis, those things are going to continue to come out, continue to come out, continue to come out until finally, 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 it starts to hit us so hard, like, slapping us together that as we go into 2026, and this is all going to happen around November-ish, November-ish. Now, this is already happening now. Okay. It's already happening every day. You can't keep up with the world events much, you can't keep up with your own events, much less the world events. Okay. And so you're seeing that this is all coming out like a big explosion. And what is going to happen is going to set up perfectly for 2026, which is the year when we finally say, I say this is the year of the remembrance, but I also mention it as this is the year 2026, end of 2025 and into 2026, where we finally say as a collective and individually, enough. Enough is enough. Okay. I'm not going to be able, for my own sake, to just sit on the sidelines of my own remembrance. I've got to listen to this voice that is telling me to do more for me. And you're going to start following your calling, so to speak, as well as you're going to say enough with this nonsense that's happening on the surface. And you're going to finally start to take some type of action toward it. Ideally, the action you take is inward. But for a lot of people, even just recognizing that what is happening out on the surface is really, really unsustainable anymore. And by 2026, late 2025, in November to 2026, we're going to see that humanity and individually, people are going to say, I'm done. I am done. Now, what it means by I'm done is that you're going to see maybe more people checking out, physically dying, but more importantly, you're going to see a lot of people saying, that's it. This world as it exists now is not repairable, and that's okay because I'm going to go inward